Today is April 22nd of the Excel workshop, and our main topic tonight is PowerQuery, and I'm going to do some reviewing. I haven't used it. I see a need for it, and when I see a need for it, then I will use it. But I think it's something we have to know about just in case we do have an inclination to use it. Tonight, I'm going to review a little bit so that we refresh our memories about, how we use it, what's the purpose of it. And then I'm going to show some examples where you can take a PDF. We've had a lot of discussions about PDFs, and you can take that right into Power Query, and voila, it translates it right into an Excel spreadsheet. Now, what made me motivated to do that, quite honestly, I was late in preparing my taxes this year, as I usually am, but this year I went to H&R Block online. And H&R Block allows you not only to connect to brokerage houses, but it also will take a 1099 and read it. And I was amazed that it actually was accurate. I thought I would definitely have a problem, but I was shocked. So I went back and thinking, oh well, we have that in Power Query, and I thought I'd give it a try. Now my example is a pristine example because I took a spreadsheet which was pristine, and I made a PDF out of it, which was pristine, and then I used the Power Query to read it back in. So I'm going to demonstrate that tonight. Also, Power Query can combine similar tables. Let's say you have two separate worksheets and you have two tables which have the same headers. It can combine them. And it not only can combine just two of them, but it can combine as many as you want. All 100 and how many windows do you have open, John? 100 and something?
Oh, yeah, but that's web pages.
Oh, web page. That reminds me, I had a client, I was on Windows, I think I was on Windows 3.1, and I had Excel, no, it was Excel 3.1, so I don't know what Windows I was on. I guess I was on Windows, very, very beginnings of Windows. And he was doing some analysis of mainframes, and I had to create some graphs, some charts, and I had something like 30 some open, and I thought that was amazing that I could have 30 within Excel with limited amount of memory and limited amount of horsepower. So I've been there, done that, but with this Power Query, you can combine or what they refer to as appending or stacking multiple uh, spreadsheets with the identical headers. They do not have to have uh, anything beyond that. They have to be a table and they have to have the same headers. The headers don't have to be in the same position, but they have to be at the top of the table. And let me see what else I have here. So yeah, that's basically it. We're going to review. We're going to do a PDF, and then we're going to take an example of appending or combining multiple worksheets using Power Query.
Yeah, I found that your last introduction was very informative, and the conversion capability in the import, where you can transform the material in the columns, extract part of the column, stuff like that. That's something that as I thought about it and the things that I sometimes do, it changed my way of thinking about how to get stuff transformed. I mean, usually I would take something and put it in a comma separated value and then take it into VI and edit it using regex.
Oh, where's Andy now to give
So
his?
tell me that, it's horrible. Hey, look, regex is just one of those most powerful things that I learned.
I know
Between
it
that
sticks with you.
and the bash shell, I mean, you can do so much conversion with the shell because it's all built in. Some
Yeah,
smart people built that stuff.
yeah.
But your introduction there changed my way of thinking about
Okay,
how to solve a problem. So
okay. I'm not going to go back to regex. I just find it.
I'm not asking you to do that.
I
I
know,
mean, I
but
don't have to use it
I've
now.
looked at it and I say, geez, this is archaic. But anyhow, let me. I would like to go and just show you the data initially that the video that Kevin Stravert was referring to, and then I'm going to show a little bit of the Kevin Stravert because I think he does a very good job in reviewing what Power Query is all about, and especially the screen layout. I'm not going to do the whole thing. It's about at the most maybe 10 minutes. I don't think it's more than that. So let me share my screen and show you my data. And okay, it looks good over here. Let me hide the controls. The controls are not showing. Okay, so it's the Kevin Cookie Company, as we recall, and he has data that he collects, and it is all similar. He has order ID, customer ID, but it's all in the same column for some reason. That's how it came from whatever we used to say it used to come from the mainframe or it used to come from another source. A lot of times I've worked with clients where they didn't do things independent. It came to them from another source. However it came, that's what they worked with. So in this case, the Kevin Cookie Company has the order ID and the customer ID in the same column. Um, and oh, I'm sorry, it has the
Oh,
order ID and the customer name in the same column. All right? Yeah. I have a problem with my display here. I'm not seeing my grid lines. Let me turn on my grid lines. I am using my wife's Windows 11. Okay, so let me get the grid line. All right. Okay, so it has order ID, and then it's the customer ID. My bad. The customer ID and the customer name are all in the same column. So in terms of cleaning it up, one of the objectives is to do what?
Split.
That's why we need the review. We're going to split this one column and parse out the customer ID from the customer name. And if we were just doing it normally in Excel, we usually would do something like text the columns and then parse it based upon a delimiter. We're going to do the same thing, but in Power Query, they call it split columns. The cookie ship is incorrectly formatted as a money value when it should be simply a number value. So we're going to change in Power Query, we're going to change the type. The type is what they call the format. So a little bit of a translation in the verbiage that is used with Power Query versus what I'm used to in Excel, straight in Excel. Revenue looks good, and let me get rid of your screen here. Okay, order date. Okay, order date looks good. Ship date looks good. Okay, so there's some definite things that need to be fixed here. And also in the video, Kevin is going to show us how to um, enter in a computation here for profit. Revenue minus cost is profit. So it's a little archaic. I found it a little archaic the way it does it, but nevertheless, we have to learn its way of doing things. And I think the other thing was the days shipped from the order date to the shipping date. I found that also a little archaic. When I say archaic, it's just something that is a little awkward. It's not simply a mathematical function. I would love to just have a mathematical function right into PowerQuery. Maybe I'm not totally that familiar with it yet to be able to do that. Or I might, do something in this worksheet to begin with, and then go from there. I haven't thought it out completely. Anyhow, this is the data that he's working with, and I'm going to show the video again, no more than 10 minutes, and I may stop it as necessary to come back. So let me minimize this and find the video. That's the other video. Okay, I guess I gotta go get it. That's the other video. Oh, here it is. And you're not seeing my screen.
We see the spreadsheet. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I have a little monitor here. All right, so I'm going to share this.
Hi everyone, Kevin here. Today I want to show you how you can use Power Query that comes with Microsoft Excel and Power BI. First off, what is Power Query? Well, it helps you both get and also clean up your data. What do I mean by that? Well, let's pretend that you're a business analyst and every month you're on point to analyze the monthly sales data. Now, one of the pains of the job is, well, first off, you have to get the data. So you go to some database or you find the latest Excel sheet. Then maybe you bring it into Microsoft Excel and then you have to clean it up. Maybe you have to remove some columns, add some columns, run some calculations, and then finally you're ready to analyze it. Instead, you can let Power Query do all of that for you and you can automate that entire process. And best of all, you don't even have to know any coding to do this. I've included some sample data in the description if you'd like to follow along. All right, let's jump on the PC and let's see how we can use Power Query. Here I am on my PC, and at the Kevin Cookie Company, I'm on point for analyzing our order data. Here you can see 3 years worth of order data, and very soon 2020 will be dropping in this folder. Once again, if you want to follow along, I've included sample files in the description. Let's click into one of these files to see what work is involved. Here's the Excel sheet, and it's a pretty standard order data sheet. I see order ID, I see the customer, how many cookies were shipped, and some additional information. Now the pain is at the Kevin Cookie Company, they're paying me the big bucks to do analysis, but I end up spending most of my time just cleaning up data. Here, for example, in column B, I don't know why they combine the customer ID together with the customer name. Also, when I look at cookies shipped, they throw a $ in front of this. It should be a unit count, not a dollar amount. Revenue costs look fine, but I need to add another column for profit. I also want to know how many days it takes to actually ship these cookies out of our warehouse. I have to go through and I typically add columns. It's a lot of manual effort. And worst of all, every time a new sheet comes out, I have to do all this cleanup again and again. I'm really hoping PowerQuery can help me today. To access PowerQuery in the latest version of Excel, simply go up to the top ribbon and click on Data. If you have Excel 2010 or Excel 2013, you need to install an add-in to be able to use PowerQuery. I've included a link in the description where you can access that. Over on the left-hand side, PowerQuery falls within this category, the Get and Transform Data. If we click over on Get Data, we see all the different sources where we can pull data in from. It's a vast collection of different places. Basically, if you have data somewhere, you'll be able to pull it into PowerQuery. When I hover over from File, here you'll see a few examples. One of the neat ones to call out is you can now pull in data from a PDF. You could pull in data from databases, from Kusto, from Azure. The list goes on and on of all the different places where you can get data. I mentioned that I have my 3 files all in a folder, and very soon the 2020 data will also fall in that folder. So within the From File list, I'm going to click on the option that says From Folder. Next, I see a prompt where I can specify the folder path where I have all of my Excel sheets. I could click on Browse. That'll open up a file picker where I can navigate to where those files are. I've already copied and pasted the folder location, so I'll simply paste that in and then click on OK. Next, this opens up another prompt where I can see that Excel or PowerQuery has found 3 different Excel files in that folder. I had the 2017 through 2019 data, so that all looks good. Down below, there are several different buttons. What can I do with them? Well, I have 3 different sheets here, and I want to combine all of the data from those sheets. So I'll click on the Combine option, and I want to transform the data. What does transform mean, and why would I click on that? Well, transform allows me to modify the data before pulling it into Microsoft Excel or into Power BI. So as I was walking through the data, there were a few different items. For instance, I wanted to get rid of the $sign in front of a column. I wanted to split out the customer name. That's what I could do with transform data. I could also simply combine all the data and load it into Excel, or I could choose where I want to load it to, but then I wouldn't have the opportunity to make changes to the data before I load it in. Here too, I also have the option to simply load the data as is, or I could simply transform the data, but because I have multiple sheets and I want to combine them, I'll click on Combine and Transform Data. This opens up another prompt where I can now combine all of my files. Up above, it allows me to choose a sample file, and by default, it simply selects the first file, which is the 2017 data. I could also change it to any other year, but I think the 2017 data is fine, so I'll simply leave it set to the first file. Down below, I also see the worksheet within all of the different workbooks. Now, all of my different workbooks have a sheet called Order Data, so I'm going to select that. Over on the right-hand side, here I can see a preview of all of my data, and it looks like it identifies it properly. So now let's click on OK. This drops us in PowerQuery, and if you've never used PowerQuery before and you're on point for analyzing data and getting data, you're going to learn to love this interface. It might look a little bit intimidating at first, but I'm going to walk you through step by step how you can use it, and first I want to orient you to the experience. Let's start off over on the left-hand side where we see all of our different queries. You have a set of helper queries, and here we see a sample file that we can transform. Down below, you also have the final query that will apply against all of our data, so when we bring it into Microsoft Excel, it'll all be transformed. And as we walk through this example, that'll make a lot more sense in a moment. Over on the right-hand side, we also have all of our different query settings. Down below, we see something called applied steps. The way to think of this is kind of like running a macro, and PowerQuery remembers every single transformation that we make on our data. Up on top, just like with most Office applications, we see a ribbon with several different options. We're going to use this to transform our data. In the center of the screen, I can see a sample of my data. At the Kevin Cookie Company, we sell a lot of cookies, so it's only showing me the top 1,000 rows of our order information. Once I make all of my changes to this data and I transform it, then we'll close it and load it, and that'll apply these changes to all of my data beyond just the top 1000 rows. Let's go through and let's start transforming this data. Now, I don't need the source name for the year that it comes from, so I'm simply going to right click on this column and I'll click on remove. That removes that column. Here now I see the order ID, and for the most part it all looks good, but there's also an XXXXXX that appears. Now, it might seem a little odd to have that in here, but anytime the Kevin Cookie Company say we send free cookies to different events or different promotions, and so we mark that down in our order data, but when I do my analysis, I don't want to look at this. So I usually go through Excel and I filter it out. Let me click on this filter icon up.
Just making a comment. There was no way that I found you could simply like delete a row. You have to actually remove some row by filtering it out. I found that a little awkward, but that's what you have to do if you're going to use PowerQuery. Anybody have any experience to the contrary?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, but again, it's its way of doing things. It would be simple for me to, of course, I tried, deleting a row, and I couldn't do that. Similarly, as we will progress, there's no simple undo. The steps that are recorded can be removed, but there's no Control Z. I couldn't think simply in terms of Control Z if I made a mistake or wanted to go back. But as it records the steps, as you do a transformation, records that as a step. And then if you wanted to go back, you simply can restore that step. And you can also move your steps around. So I'm going to continue it, but I just wanted to point that out as to me, it's a little awkward coming from my background with Excel. But that's the way you have to adapt if you're going to use PowerQuery, as far as I know. Any other comment before I continue?
I was just thinking about the last one about hitting Control Z, to undo, and some of the transformations that you do could be quite drastic, right? You filter out like a whole bunch of columns, and suddenly the whole data changes. Having Control C, Control Z, I should say.
Yeah.
It could potentially take a while to kind of undo that whole step, right? So that's I'm saying. The user experience over there might be also quite frustrating because you hit Control Z and the thing locks up for like 2 seconds while it tries to undo everything. That's what I suspect. It has to be very deliberate as to where you go from that panel, and then it will undo, because you just had a small spreadsheet. Well, it's not very small; it's medium size, I would say. But if you had a large spreadsheet, I can see your machine just grinding to a halt if you try to do too many undos.
I would just say, Fred, that as I interact with my grandchildren and you interact with your grandchildren, and we look at other people doing things, they may have never experienced using some of the approach. That's why I said earlier that seeing this gives me a whole different way of looking at how to do the work. And the point here is he's creating a program that's going to be run many times. The amount of effort put into creating the program it may take a long time to do that, but it's far faster running the program against the data so that it works every time than it is to try to manually manipulate the data. You don't want to have to manually manipulate anything here. You have a spreadsheet, and sure, you could go in and before you ever start processing it with PowerQuery, you take out all of the XXXXX lines. No, you don't want to have to touch that thing. You want the program to be able to do it. So the fact that you have to back up a few steps over in that right panel and fix the way you were doing it is because you're figuring it out on the fly. I think that there are new and different ways to do it. You
Just-
might also be able, in some very short time, to be able to just drop this thing into Copilot and say, do these things. And you don't have to go through this at all.
Let me tell you, I'm living with Copilot. Just a comment, Sujit, when we're talking about Power Query, it only takes in the first 1,000 rows. It does not take in the entire spreadsheet. So,
I see.
so
Okay. So it shouldn't take long, even if it
yeah,
has
you're,
one
you're,
news,
you're,
what you're
take, you're
saying.
taking a sample. So, you're not taking in a million rows.
Fair point.
And with a database, you're connecting to a database, and the database may have millions of rows, but you only take in representative of whatever the first 1,000 up to the first 1,000 rows.
Got it. No, that makes sense.
Let me continue.
On top, and because it's a letter, I'll scroll to the bottom of the list and then uncheck this. This will remove it from my data set. Next, I was complaining about the customer ID being combined with the customer name. I want to split these two. I'm going to click on this column, and then when I right click on it, I can go down to the option that says split column. And I want to split it by delimiter. The delimiter is the space, the dash, and the space. So let's click on this. This opens up a prompt where I can specify a custom delimiter. Here it looks like there's a dash, but I also want to insert a space in front and a space after. That looks good. Let's now click on OK. This now split those into two separate columns. If you look at the column title though, one of them is customer ID .1 and the other is .2. That's not a very descriptive name. Let me double click to change the column header name, and I'll change this to customer ID because that truly is the customer ID. And then this next column, well, that's the customer name. So let me double click on that and I'll type in customer name. As we continue moving over to the right in the data, I'm going to minimize the queries on the left-hand side to allow us to see more of the data here. Next, I want to calculate the profit, and profit is the revenue minus the cost. I'm going to select the revenue column and also select the cost column, and then let's go up to the top ribbon and click on add column. Within add column in the center, there's the option for standard, and I have different types of calculations that I can apply. I want to take the revenue and subtract the cost, so I'll click on the option that says subtract. This adds another column all the way to the right hand side of my sheet called subtraction. I want to give this a better name, so I'll double click on the column header, and this is our profit, and I'll type in profit. I want this column to appear alongside the revenue and the cost, so I'll simply drag this column over and place it right after the cost. My revenue, cost, and profit columns, well, these are all currency, and I want to apply that data type. I'm going to click on Control and select the cost column and the revenue column, and then right click. Within this menu, let's go down and click on Change Type, and I'll change it to currency. You now see this icon here indicates what the data type is. Over on the right hand side, you'll see our ship date and the order date, and there's always a little bit of lag between when a set of cookies is ordered to when we're able to ship it out of our warehouse. I've heard some news that perhaps it's taking a little bit long in some cases, so another column would help me know how many days it takes. I'll select the ship date column, and then I'll press Control and select the order date column. I selected ship date first because I want to take the ship date and then I want to subtract the order date from the ship date column. Once I have both columns selected, let's go up to add column on the ribbon, and over on the right hand side I can click on the option that says date.
Another comment here. Subtraction is not just subtraction. If you're subtracting getting your profit from revenue minus cost, you do the subtraction under standard. If you're subtracting days, you do it under days. Now there may be something that I'm missing, but I don't know why they have a separate function for calculating days versus just subtracting, and let the program automatically determine what data type it is. So, but that's again adapting to the program. I pointed it out the last time we did this, that I just found that a little awkward because when I did it without the video, I went back to subtraction and I got something totally different. So you have to realize if you're subtracting days, that's where you have to go. It just threw me off. Any comment or I see
Fred,
I see time also, duration. Duration is separate.
Fred,
Yeah,
I'm back to the undo. I'm sorry. I was muted. I didn't realize it. I was trying to break in. On the undo, you're limited to 100 undos in Word and Excel, I think.
yeah.
So maybe if the Power Query did more than 100 calculations, that's maybe why the undo didn't work.
It's,
No, it
it's,
doesn't do it at
it's
all.
not 100 lines, it's
The 100
100
undos.
undos,
But it
100
doesn't.
different undos.
But Power Query doesn't do any undo, control Z's.
Well, I haven't tried that. I don't know. I just knew that undo is limited to 100 undos.
Hmm. If you usually don't catch it in the three steps, you're cooked.
You know, you bring this question up about why date is handled differently.
Yeah.
Does every day have 24 hours? The answer is no. There are 2 days. One has 23 hours and the other one has 25 hours because of daylight savings time. So the way you handle date manipulation in Excel has, I believe, a lot of sophistication under the covers. There was just an article because of we have these three things: Passover, Eastern Easter, and Western Easter, and why do they occur on the days that they do? And there are calculations about that based on things. So if somebody wants to put in a calculation about a date, it's complicated. You know, and when you handle the holidays, when you handle work days, you have to put in a holiday schedule for your particular calculation. So maybe this thing handles all of that stuff.
I don't know, John. I'm just thinking in terms of a normal spreadsheet. I have two dates, and I want to know how many days are between the two dates. There is a function for it. I think it's date diff or something like that. Or if I just subtract them, I may get an answer that would also be a date. In other words, it may be the wrong format, and I just changed the format. It's just that here I'm doing a totally different procedure in order to subtract the days. I just personally found that awkward. I'm going to
So the
move.
question might be,
Yeah.
are there any other things besides
Oh, I'm
dates
sure there are. Yeah.
which are calculated differently in here,
Well, it
which are
has.
handled differently?
This is for time. It also has time and duration. I mean, it has some good functionality here. I'm not disputing that. I just found that in the subtraction alone, I had to subtract days. I had to find that somewhere else rather than just subtract. Let me move ahead.
Within the date menu, there's the option to subtract days. Let's click on this. This adds another column over on the right hand side and it subtracted the dates. So here I could see how long it takes. And wow, 5 days to get cookies out of our warehouse, that's unacceptable. I'm going to have to talk to our warehouse team to see why it's taking so long. Now right now this column is simply called subtraction. I'm going to double click on this and give this column a name. I called this column days to ship and that looks good. Just like before, I'm going to click on this column and I'll drag it over so it sits right up alongside order date and ship date. As I'm walking through every single step here, over on the right hand side, you can see a record or a history of every single step that I took. In a sense, it's like recording a macro in Microsoft Excel. Let's say for instance that I have this order status column and maybe I don't want it. I can right click on this column and then remove it. Here you see down below that it says removed columns 1. But let's say that really I want to keep the order status there. I can click on this X to remove remove that step. Here now, if I go over
There's
to the
your
right-hand
undo.
side, you see that the column has returned. Along with simply removing a step that I recorded, you could also click on an item and you could move it around if you want that transform step to happen earlier in the steps. I've now gone through and I've made a number of transformations to my data. I'm going to go back over to the left-hand side, and once again, there are all sorts of different transformations you can make. The way to think of this is as you're going through and you're transforming your data, you're in a sense recording steps that'll automate bringing data like this in the future. Now that I'm done with all of my transformations, I'm going to click on Home up on the top ribbon, and next let's click on Close and Load. This now drops me in Microsoft Excel, and if I click on the order date, here you can see that all 3 Excel sheets.
Now, the reason all 3 of those worksheets come in is because when he started this procedure, he started from file in a folder, or from folder, and all 3 of those files were in the same folder. So that means you have to be aware of that when you set it up. If you want to now be able to have all 3 worksheets combined, here you have to put them in the same folder if you use this methodology. Comment or question?
Have been combined into one. It brought all 3 years worth of data together. And the great thing is I didn't have to go through each individual sheet to make all of these changes. Here you see the customer ID is separate from the customer name. Here you see that all of them contain the days to ship. So here it's simplified merging all of this data into one sheet. Over on the right hand side, I also have a pane for queries and connections. And here I see PowerQuery.
Sujit, you do a lot of database work. Could you just define connections for us, or help us understand what a connection is?
A connection to the database, to another database. Is that what you meant?
Yeah. I mean, is it just a link, or
It would be like a SQL connection, typically on port 1433. Like if you're using SQL Server, you have to use the SQL client and connect on port 1433, and with the credentials, and then you can provide all those select statements like select star from blah blah blah, where customer ID is X or something like that.
So in order to work with a database, you first have to connect to it. Is that
Correct? Yeah, you'd have to connect to it.
Yeah, there's a place in there because there are certain connection parameters, and Excel saves those in your connections. So that if you're using a particular database all the time, and it's got a password on it, it's saved in Excel.
right?
There's a place in the data thing in the ribbon for connections.
Right.
So let's say that they move the database in a company and they have a new password on it. You can modify the connection without having to modify anything else in the tables.
Okay. I'm going to actually demonstrate. I wanted to get it from you guys what they mean by connection, because in PowerQuery I'm going to demonstrate also a connection. So that is going to come back, but I just wanted to get some input from you guys who work with databases.
If I right click on this, I can go down to show the peak, and here I can see a sample of the data once again. But the thing that's really interesting is it's looking at this data source or this folder. So if I bring additional files into this folder, it'll bring that data in automatically and it'll apply all of the transformations to that data. So I no longer have to get the data or clean it up. All of that happens for me automatically.